Hi, I'm Jim Matthew Sadler.
And I'm WIM Natasha Regan. Welcome to game 94 of the Superfinal of TCEC 18 between Stockfish and Leela Zero. Today we are looking at a Dutch defence, and Stockfish as white plays quite a good plan with b4 on the queenside in order to gain space and to advance those queenside pawns quickly. Leela tries to defend by setting up a Stonewall type position, but actually it doesn't turn out to be very solid for Leela. And Leela gets weakened dark squares. And to make it worse, Leela exchanges off its dark squared bishop, so the position is a little bit vulnerable. Stockfish plays on both sides of the board, and then Stockfish plays an interesting thrust on the Kingside, and it turns out that Stockfish thinks it's completely winning the arising position. It's given up a pawn, but it thinks it's like kind of +7 on the evaluation, and it's not obvious to anyone else, but the position turns out to be really, really strong. And so Stockfish was right.
Exactly. It's actually a very, very good game, this one. And I think it was more or less the game that sealed the super final win for Stockfish. So well worth looking at. So this is the opening position that they started from. I'll just wind back as normal just to show you how it turned out. So d4, f5, the Dutch. Bishop g2, e6, and this is the classical Dutch, which is a favourite opening of Simon Williams, the English grandmaster and Dutch fan. So here Black plays a number of moves. a5 has been played quite a bit, but queen e8 is the main move. Just preparing to bring the queen either to g6 or to h5 and get some kingside play rolling. Now, of course, you know, with Black's plan in the opening with the Dutch, you gain a bit of kingside space, a bit of central space with this move f5, but you do really leave the queenside a bit to itself, really. So the plan that both Leela and Stockfish played when they had white is very, very logical, and that's b2 to b4. Yeah, I mean, when I was a professional, I also discovered for myself that playing b2 to b4, trying to get a very quick queenside initiative with white was you know, a very good idea, and played quite a few games against the Leningrad Dutch system, you know, with very, very quick b4s. And
Do you think this should be then called the Sadler line?
I think so. I think so. I mean, a lot of good players played it. I think a bit later than me. Luke Van Velde, in particular, played loads and loads of games. But I'm pretty sure I was the one who really started doing it like that. I got a couple of nice
I
games from
guess
that
to get it
line.
named after you, you should just start naming it that.
That
See if it catches on.
that's true. That's true.
But
That's
this is
true.
the Sadler line of the Dutch.
Well, the thing is, I only did it against the Leningrad, you see. So
So it's stretching the truth a little bit.
it's stretching the truth a little bit, but in any case, it is a very good plan, you know, and it's quite awkward for Black. I mean, I don't particularly like what Leela did now in the next few moves. I do think that Leela didn't find a good strategy here. Leela played the move c6, and well, just in general, I mean, they do say, you know, you don't move pawns on the side where you're being attacked, and I mean, it's not always, you know, it's one of those general rules. It's not always correct, but here you really do see the point, because with this pawn on c6, as soon as White plays b5, he's immediately, you know, putting pressure on the queen side, and immediately he's you know, he's able to make things happen there. Whereas, you know, with a pawn on c7, well, it's, you know, White's got to work a lot harder to create some openings. From that point of view, I preferred Stockfish's idea, you know, just to play knight c6. Queen b3, knight d8. Just get the knight developed out of there. It's coming round to f7, which is a pretty good square in the Dutch. And well, you're just asking White, you know, how are you going to you know, open up that queen side? I mean, Leela still won the game in the end, but it was I felt it was a lot closer than this one. because essentially after the first 14 or 15 moves, black really does have a very ropey position. So c6, bishop f4. Yeah, I probably would have just played a4 or queen b3 and carried on with the queen side, but it's a decent developing move, just attacking the pawn on d6. Knight bd7 and b5. So the knights move to d7. c6 is less well defended, so Stockfish straight away goes for b5. And now Leela took another decision that I don't like very much. In my engine games, oh good lord, black was playing h6 a lot, followed by g5. Gains kingside space, chases the bishop away from f4. Still a lot of weaknesses here, but at least you have the feeling that black's doing something active for itself. Leela played knight e4, takes, knight d2, and then d5, and we're into a Stonewall. But really, this is a pretty bad Stonewall. d6 to d5 has taken 2 tempi. Well, the bishop in general would like to be on d6. I mean, there are systems where you put the bishop on e7. I've played them with black with a Stonewall, but especially with the bishop on f4 here, those two bishops. This one looks great here, cutting across the queen side. And also very importantly, white's played b4 to b5 in one move. Hasn't even had to prepare it with rook b1. So I mean, white's a few tempi up on a normal Stonewall, and black obviously hasn't got any sort of kingside play ready. And on top of that, white's also got the idea of playing f2 to f3, breaking open the centre and getting rid of that Stonewall prong on e4. So yeah, in general, it's not looking good for black in general here. So rook c1, good solid move, just preparing to try and open up the c file with c takes d5. Bishop b4. Now one of these strange repetition things that engines often come up with. It's funny, really. Somehow you just have the idea that I'm not quite sure why these things happen, but anyway, they always seem to find each other back in the original position. And then queen b3, just attacking the bishop on b4. And here Leela decided to take on d2. Why do you take on d2? I think the idea was to make f3 less dangerous. Make it this is no longer supported by a knight on d2. But you have given up control of all your dark squares, and there are a lot of dark squares, weak dark squares in the position. So essentially, it feels like it's getting just worse and worse. Really, I mean that's the problem.
Yeah, so I mean, white's got a big advantage on the queen side, and black's kingside play just doesn't look dangerous yet.
No, that's right. I mean, it's of course it's not winning yet, but it is a clear advantage for white. And I think with good play from white, you would always expect black to be really suffering.
And what we see in a bit is that it's white playing on the king side as well.
Exactly. Spoiler alert.
I already told you it in the intro.
Indeed.
If you're concentrating, you'd know that already.
So knight f6, and then here Stockfish took the opportunity. It's like a minority attack. So took the opportunity just to swap off the pawns and create this weak pawn on c6. But okay, you've got lots of dark squares to target. Black's position is quite difficult, but okay, how are you gonna carry on with this? How are you gonna make something of it? And Stockfish plays really well from now on. Plays queen a4 first of all, bishop d7, queen a3, which surprised me a little bit. But the point is, well, probably the queen would have to move from b3 anyway because it's on the b file, so it might get targeted by a rook. But the other thing was that a very nice active square for the light squared bishop was a6, attacking e2 and maybe aiming to get into c4, which blocks the c file. So this little shimmy queen a4, queen a3 connects with the dark squares, get the queen off an exposed open file, and also draws the bishop away from a6, so leaves it on this diagonal. Leela plays a5. The idea of that is to just try and get some hold of some dark squares, and not allow white to come in with something maybe even like queen a6 or something like that. White can take that pawn on a5 possibly, but you're just tying yourself up. There's no point in taking a pawn like that. And Stockfish just ignores it and plays bishop f4. A nice move, taking control of b8, so that's going to give white some opportunities to invade on the b file as well. h5 from Leela. Well, we know what the idea of that is.
h4 and then h3 to set up a thorn pawn on the king side.
Exactly. I mean, essentially, if black gets that pawn onto h3, then black's got something to compensate for all its dark squares and queenside weaknesses, because then there's a big kingside weakness. And quite striking here how careful Stockfish is about this. Plays this excellent.
Because when I first saw this game, I thought that white would simply play h4 to block the h5 pawn from advancing.
Yeah, I mean that's a decent idea. What Stockfish does is very, very active simply. So white plays this move f3. Now black's always got to watch out for these f takes e4 moves, opening up the f file. And if you go h4, it'll just simply go g4. The h pawn can't advance. This pawn on the dark square is very weak because black's dark squares are so weak, and white's just also gaining space on the king side there. So that's a very good move to deal with any possible black attempts to gain some sort of play on the king side. But Leela went rook f7, bishop d6, and now bishop f5. So what is the idea of this? Well, actually Leela is trying to stop white from coming in on the b file. So if rook b1, there's e takes f3. Leela's actually trying to gain counterplay, by getting the b file for itself. It's not easy, but if you go rook b7 and rook a6 to b6, then you can claim that the b file is yours. So that's Leela's plan pretty much. What is Stockfish going to do about that? Well, we'll have a look. h3, a4. Actually, again, a part of grabbing hold of the b file. This stops. A white rook can't go to b1 because of e takes f3. Can't go to c2 because of e takes f3. And if I go rook c3 now, I can't go to b3 because the pawn on a4 is covering. So again, what Leela's doing is pretty logical. Really trying to fight for one a positional advantage simply, and trying to grab that for itself. G4, bishop g6, so gaining a bit of kingside space, chasing the bishop away from the queen side, so it can't help protect the pawn on c6. And now this move rook c3. And together with the move g4, which chased the bishop away, I was really thinking, just a very normal innocent move here. Intending to line up on the c file, maybe with rook fc1, maybe even with queen c1, the queen can move over to the king side somehow. Maybe that's going to be an idea. But it was actually much more aggressive than that, because after rook b7 from Leela, taking hold of the b file, Stockfish played this powerful move. Now it played. No, it doesn't matter. It wasn't going to be a puzzle. It plays the move f4. What is this move? Well, white is threatening to play f5 and g5. I mean, that's a massive threat. So black's got to do something about it. But it seems that black actually can, because black can play h takes g4, h takes g4, and knight takes g4. But now we're going to see the point of white's move rook c3, which wasn't just innocently aiming to target a weak pawn on the queen side. It was aiming to transfer the rook to the king side. And this is a very, very dangerous idea for black, because white is simply aiming to play the bishop to h3, chase that knight away from g4, and once that knight moves from g4, I can just show you, then white gets to move bishop e5 in, and then also the queen can maybe invade in d6 or can go to e3 and g5. You know, this is just very, very dangerous for black. Black's really getting tied up on the king side. So Leela went e3. I think the idea is after bishop h3 to play knight f2, I believe. Just maybe going to take that bishop. I mean, even that doesn't look particularly bad for white. But Stockfish came up with an even stronger plan, which was to play rook h3. So attacking the bishop on h5 now, and well, because this pawn has moved forward to e3, white's now got the f3 square for the bishop, and white's going to use this by playing bishop f3, king g2, and rook h1, and just power through on the h file like that. And well, there's only a bishop as a barrier there, which is not a good piece. You'd really want a pawn there.
Scary stuff.
Scary stuff indeed. So, well, what did Leela do? Well, the only way to stop white from doubling up on the h-file is to swap off a pair of rooks. And here all Leela's work on the b-file earlier comes in handy, because just in 3 moves, Leela manages to play rook b1 and well, exchange off the rooks. Takes.
The engines were still, I think, thinking a little bit differently from each other about how good the position was.
Yeah, I mean, Stockfish was it's either maybe in a couple more moves, but at some stage it reached, you know, +7, and Leela was still on 0.7 or 0.8. You know, so that, I mean, for Stockfish, this is not just a bit winning; it's just absolutely, you know, 100% chance of winning. Whereas for Leela, it was still unclear. I mean, to be honest, if you ask me to assess the position around here, I'd definitely say white is better, but I'd sort of say, oh yeah, there's still quite a few tactical tricks, you know, around the king side, a lot of work to do. But for Stockfish, this was already trivial. You know, I mean, it's really its calculation was amazingly impressive in this super final. I mean, simply this type of position with lots of open lines and lots of, you know, geometry to get pieces close to the opponent's king. Obviously, you know, Leela's king is quite exposed, so big danger there. Yeah, I mean, in these types of positions, Stockfish was just absolutely awesome. It's this match, and somehow I think you know, on balance in the match, it managed to get more of these types of positions than the close strategical positions that Leela favours. Because this is really just pure tactics, you know, no strategy about it, just pointing your bits at the king and making it work. So bishop e5 is the first very unexpected move. It feels odd to offer the exchange of that dark squared bishop, which has been so, you know, so mighty. But actually the position has changed slightly, and the most important weaknesses are not really the dark squared weaknesses anymore, but it's the light squared weaknesses around the black king that Stockfish exposed with this f4 pawn sacrifice. So white's threatening to play queen d6, something like this, just invading, which is going to be very, very upsetting. So black played knight takes e5, bishop takes h5, so white's gained access to the dark squares. Looks like white might even be maybe winning a piece or something, you never know. But black's got this move knight c4, attacking the white queen. And here, I think Stockfish was up to, well, certainly after the next move, queen takes a4, queen e4 check, rook f3. Stockfish was up to +14, which frankly is quite outrageous, because you've just self-pinned your rook. You know, black's got you know, queen, knight, and rook not that far away from the king. Knight can come into d2, pinning the rook on f3. You know, how can this be +14? You know, but simply it just it's all tactics, and it all works. The weakness of black's king, of course, is the huge thing. I mean, white's got invasion possibilities through a8, through c6, and there's also this move f6 as well, which is going to expose the black king and cause a lot of problems. But let's have a look at the very...
It's quite useful the king can't come out via f7. It's only got kind of one
yeah.
route in the black king.
Yeah, I mean the black king is very restricted. I mean that is absolutely true. But it's just you look at a black's possible counterplay and you sort of think, well,
Yeah,
is this
I
really
know.
so trivial? But yeah.
I would be really, yes. I mean, I would be scared as white here.
So there's a few moves here. Knight d2 is the obvious one, pinning the rook on f3. But then we've got a full sequence here. Check, check. And then this far from obvious move, bishop e8. When if black plays knight takes f3, we've got force mate with check and queen d7. What other moves could black try? Rook b7 is another idea to cover f7, but then we just go check, check, takes. And after king e8, queen c6, at some stage we'll force the exchange of queens off, and then we're just going to have a winning king and pawn ending. Pretty, yeah, just from that point of view, quite easy. So what Leela did was play this move rook e1, which is quite obvious, threatening rook takes e2 check. The only problem is that rook takes e2 check threatens a lot less than you'd think, because white can play the king to h3, which, to be honest, we've often talked about where AlphaZero and also Leela hide their king, often on the rook's file on the third rank, and here it's being done back to Leela here because yeah, this h3 square is a very safe square for the white king. There's no checks there. So the question is, how dangerous is white's initiative? And it turns out to be, I mean, it looks quite dangerous to me, but again, that it's so winning is quite a shock, but that's what it turns out to be. So Stockfish grabs checks and grabs the pawn, so that gives a tempo. So queen g6 or bishop g6, f6 will all come with check, which is quite important. King h8 from Leela, just to get out of that. The idea is that if you go something like bishop g6, then I get access to g4. So it is quite important for white to to play his attacking moves with gain of tempo. I mean, you can't just slowly strengthen your position too much because, well, black's pieces are around the white king. But now this very strong move f6 with a fantastic tactical point. Knight d2 comes in from Leela. You're still some way though from a real giving concrete mate. You're going to have to play rook e2, play knight f3, and then you're threatening something. But what Stockfish does so beautifully here is get closer to the black king while still keeping control of all these squares. No black checks along the c8 h3 diagonal. You're now threatening mate on g7, which is actually surprisingly hard to cover. So king h6 from Leela, running forwards, but attacking that bishop on h5. And if the king takes that bishop on h5, then all of a sudden all white's kingside light squares are exposed. So what is the way to how is white going to do this? Well, Leela white played f takes g7. And Leela played knight takes f3 here. And now if you want to have a good little tactical puzzle here, just pause the video here and work out what white's win is here. It's quite beautiful, and of course astonishing to think probably how far back Stockfish saw this possibility. And the solution is...
Stockfish plays g8 equals knight check.
Exactly. A beautiful idea. What's the point of it? The point is simply that black's got a few squares that his king must never go to. h7, which is obviously illegal at the moment, and h5, because then we go knight f6 check and pick up the queen. And then afterwards quite a few of black's other pieces. So Leela does its ultimate best to avoid stepping on that mined h5 square. But after queen g3 check, it's boom, because after black's only got king h5 and then knight f6 check, he got knight f6 check, picks up the queen. And after king h6 check, rook g1, king f3, d takes e4, king takes e4, king e3 would lose, but white's got two winning moves, and Stockfish plays one of them, king g4, and here Leela resigned. because obviously after rook takes g3, king takes g3, the king and pawn ending is trivially winning for white with two big pass pawns. So there we are. That was the game, and I hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was a stunning performance from Stockfish. First of all, the very nice positional play in the opening. I think I thought this was very, very nice, and then I thought the way that that Stockfish, played with f3, directed against h5.
Swinging that rook over.
Swinging that rook over. This rook c3 followed by this pawn sacrifice. Incredible. I didn't see that one coming at all. And the whole build-up is incredible. And then all of these tactics, simply because I think certainly as a human player you get very worried, suspicious when you're having to do stuff like self-pin. For example, a move like rook f3 in the middle of your attack. You want your pieces to be pointing towards the opponent's king without any sort of drawback. And here, a rook self-pinning, unable to move, attacked can be attacked by the opponent's pieces. That's a very hard thing to calculate properly. But obviously for Stockfish, this was no problem. And of course, this phenomenal tactic at the end with fg, knight f3, g8 queen. G8 knight rather, that makes everything before it make sense, and that whole plus 14 evaluation, really incredible. It's only Stockfish can do this. It's and this was again a crucial game, I think, securing the Superfinal for Stockfish, and a deserved big margin of victory. So there we are. That was probably the last game we've got planned to look at from the Sufi. We're not ruling out that we'll do more, but this is I think we've done a nice summary of the last Superfinal. But we've always got more stuff planned. We've got AlphaZero games to look at as well, for example, and the TCEC continues with lots of bonus events. So there's always something interesting to look at from there as well. But if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet,
please subscribe and tell all your friends about it as well.
Exactly. We want to get to 5,000 subscribers. That's our big goal. So help us get there. Otherwise, do take a look at A Game Changer, our wonderful book about computer chess and AlphaZero and Stockfish. Masses of amazing games like this in there, and lots of the background about why Stockfish plays the way it does and why AlphaZero and the neural nets play the way they do. And otherwise, keep well, keep safe, and thanks for watching.
Thank you for watching.